Live from the MMA Fighting Studios, this is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck. Yeah.
The iconic voice of Esther Lynn's husband, E. Casey Leiden, welcomes you to a brand new edition of BTL. 2025 off to just a fantastic start, but we hope your 2025 is off to just the best possible start it can be. And today, we're back to business here on the program, the best panel show in MMA, and we have some family infighting here this week, and with a lot to discuss because the UFC is back this Saturday. As we say all the time, we can't miss you if you don't leave. The UFC left for a few weeks, and now they're back to the world's most famous Apex. This weekend, the UFC is heading back to Seattle with a very promising looking card. And then Joe Rogan said some stuff and then retracted the stuff. But who knows what's true and what's not? We'll talk about that and much more. Plus, there's going to be a big announcement coming up later on in the program, just chock full of goodies. Stay tuned for that. Before we get into everything, shout out to Casey and Esther and everyone out in California dealing with the wildfires right now. It's just all the images I see on social media they get you. So our hearts go out to you. Wish you all the best. Hope the show could give you a little bit of a breather away from all that, because I can't imagine what it is like over there. So sending the most positive of vibes out to Cali. But let's get into this. Tough to transition from that. Let us introduce the players first. He's back. First time in 2025 on the show. He is Mr. No Gray Area. He's the hot take kid, the charismatic climber himself. Can he accomplish the climb? Jed Bashu is here. How are you, sir? Ah, look at this.
Otto's here too.
Cheater.
More importantly, Otto is here. Otto says, "Hi, Casey. I'm really sorry about what's happening, but I'll beat the hell out of this dude I'm facing, so you can be happy about that." Huzzah! Put up your dukes.
Well, Jed only does this when he's afraid. He wants the sympathy vote, the fan vote, and I understand why, because I thought this is his opponent's second appearance on the program. It's actually his first, and I feel just terrible about this, but I'm glad to have him here. You're going to see him on some other programming. In fact, if you watch the 2025 fantasy draft, you saw this man, and I think he drafted a damn good team. The Brazilian beast himself, Mr. Dominick Cruz. He's the OG GC, by the way. How are you?
What's up, Mike? What's up, Jed? Hi, Casey. Jed, get ready to lose. Sorry, man. I came here for a win, and I won't leave that one. And I don't care about your dog. Sorry.
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
kidding.
Low blow to start the day. Also, I don't care if I win this. I care about winning season 2 of the Fantasy League.
You're not winning that either. Sorry.
Credit to you, Guy. Guy and Mike currently in the lead on our website voting on who will win. You are both tied at 23% of the reader vote. Let me take a look back at your teams.
Let me go there and give myself a vote. 1 second.
Poor Damon Martin is bringing up the rear.
Well, it happens. Shout out to David, who's on vacation right now.
And it's early yet. Also, fan voting does not matter. So we'll see how it
doesn't
goes.
matter if I'm winning.
That's true.
Yeah.
Also, if you just the first name on Damon's team is Curtis Blades, and that probably hurts him. Right? That probably I'm not into that. Curtis Blades, Jamal Hill. No thanks. Not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough start.
Probably has the most unlikable team in fantasy MMA history, just based on those two names. But
I had Juliana Pena and Joaquin Buckley last season. Don't take away the one thing I had from me.
Yeah, but Buckley, he turned things around. He did the thing. And maybe somebody else will do the thing this year. Joe Rogan has actually done the thing that's gotten the MMA world talking. So let's get into the big story of the week. We're going to play a little game of who do you believe? And it involves the aforementioned Joe Rogan. It involves Dana White. And it involves Jon Jones. So I'm sure most of you have seen this already. Joe Rogan said on a podcast that aired a little over a week ago of his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, that he had heard a rumor that Jon Jones was asking for $30 million to fight Tom Aspinall, and that the UFC said yes. And this story took shape in a big way. Everybody's talking about it. Bisbing and DC and anyone you can think of is doing videos and having commentary about this. Yesterday, Wednesday, if you're listening deep into the future, Rogan has another show with UFC superfan Theo Vaughn, and Rogan says essentially he got a call from Dana White and said those rumors are quote unquote bullshit. Now, normally we would let this go, but this is Dana White we're talking about here, and there's literally an encyclopedia-sized list of times that Dana has said things that just aren't accurate. So the question for you, Guilherme Cruz, is simply this. Who do you believe? Or honestly, I think the real question is, who do you believe more? Do you believe Joe Rogan's initial comment that Jones wants $30 million, the UFC is going to pay, and he's going to fight Tom Aspinall? Or do you believe the retraction more from Rogan saying that Dana called him and he was full of shit?
I don't believe any of them, but I do think that Jon Jones wants 30 million, and I do think Dana White is not gonna pay that. So they're kind of both wrong and both right. I think that the UFC will never pay that. The UFC can pay that, especially now with the Saudis and Dubai and all that, all those friends of the UFC supporting them, like partnering, doing tons of events on that side of the world. So yeah, they can pay that, but Jon Jones is a smart man sometimes, and he knows that the UFC has means to pay that, but they just won't. So I do think like Joe Rogan heard that Jon Jones was asking for that, but I think he was wrong when he said that he heard the UFC was gonna pay it. So Dana White, calling him and saying, okay, it's not that's not right. And Joe Rogan surprisingly going on record to say he was wrong. He was spreading fake news, fake rumors. So yeah, that's where I stay on this dilemma, on this drama. I think they're both wrong. They're both lying, except for Jon Jones wanting shitloads of money to take this Tom Aspinall fight.
Jed, what's the more believable side to this saga? And what was your reaction to all this?
I think they're both kind of believable, but I think one is where I'll side. What I mean by that is I think Dana being like, John's not asking for that. I don't really buy that. I don't know I'm not in John's head. I don't know what amount of money he's asking for, but, and I quote, he wants FU money to fight Tom Aspinall, and Dana seems to be focused on that fight and is, at least previously, was very against booking the Pereira matchup after we saw UFC 309. I don't know, 30 million seems pretty close to FU money, right? Like that seems like in the neighborhood of FU money. So like, especially if John is just ballparking based on like sort of the numbers that were thrown around for Francis Ngannou's boxing thing. I know boxing and MMA, not the same, but John's probably not unreasonable to say, hey, if Francis is getting $50 million or whatever it was to box, why can't I ask for 30 to take this fight that I don't really want to take? That being said, Joe Rogan is not a reliable source of information on anything, and he's even less reliable when he himself is qualifying it as this is a rumor I heard. So giving that any real credence is probably like not the smartest thing to do, but also Dana White, not a reliable source of information either. So like we shouldn't trust either of them. They could both be telling the truth. They could both be lying. My guess is that it is somewhere in between, that John didn't throw out 30 million exactly, but that he has thrown out a exorbitant number relative. Let's be very clear. Not an unreasonable number, but unreasonable in the confines of how the UFC operates. Because I don't know, what's the max they ever paid Conor? Like 10 million flat plus the kick? Like just asking for that sort of flat fee is not how the UFC does business, not how they're going to do business, frankly. And so my guess is that I think the number, Mike, that you and I have previously thrown out felt a little around 20 million. If he's asking for 30, good for him. But my guess is that he is asking for the FU money that he said he would ask for, and that Dana is pretty clearly not inclined to pay that. And so, yeah, he is contemplating retirement because it is truly the only leverage play fighters have. That's why, frankly, Conor used to say, screw it, I'm retired. It's why Henry Cejudo retired. He was trying to get more money. Didn't work out for him. But the only leverage that fighters have once they sign with the UFC is to threaten retirement because the contracts don't allow them to do jack shit else. So I've been very clear on this the entire time. I do not think Jon Jones is going to fight Tom Aspinall. I'm trying to change my opinion because I said I was going to be very optimistic in 2025. So I'd like to optimistically think that he does, but I think that it would be a pretty big career misstep for him to fight Tom Aspinall unless he is getting paid appropriately. So I guess I'll side with Dana's more right because I do think Jon is contemplating retirement.
I actually have been saying I think the number's higher than 30. I think it's like 40, maybe more. And he should ask for that because, Jed, we've talked about this before. Dana White had come out and said Jon Jones asked for Deontay Wilder money to fight Francis Ngannou. And at that time, Deontay Wilder made reportedly around $30 million to fight Tyson Fury for the second time in that crazy ass fight. And as we say all the time, yesterday's price is not the same as today's price. That was 3 years ago that Dana said that. You think Jon's asking for the same amount of money to fight Tom Aspinall? I certainly don't, especially with a TV deal coming up, 2, the UFC coming off of the biggest year ever in its company's history, gate after gate after gate, breaking record after record after record. If I'm Jon, I'm asking for more than 30, but that's besides the point. Because as we know, Jed, Dana White, love him or hate him, very savvy businessman. The man has layers to him, and it has helped make him as successful as he is. Joe Rogan got this call. He got this message from Dana White for a reason. Could it be Dana just clarifying things? Perhaps. Could this be a negotiation ploy, Jed? Using the biggest, or at worst, one of the 3 to 5 biggest podcasts on planet Earth, featuring a super UFC fan as the guest, to make a kind of move. The one thing I do believe with all my heart is that Dana White called his buddy Joe Rogan and said, hey, man, this needs a retraction, and Joe would do it because they're friends. But why, though, Jed? Is this just as simple as Dana being like, hey, man, this is wrong? Or do you think this is maybe Jon is asking for too much money and this is our shot back in some kind of way?
I'm going to assume that it's a negotiation ploy because basically everything Dana does is a negotiation ploy. My guess is that they just don't want the anchored number of 30 million public, that it is better for them to not, because I just went and looked it up while you were talking. Do you remember how much Conor McGregor made guaranteed purse for his fight against Khabib, the biggest fight in the history of the sport by a wide margin? Do you recall what his guarantee was for that?
I'm going to say it's 5.
It was 3.
I don't know.
$3 million was the guarantee. So you were talking 10x that for a fight that I think we can all be adults here and say will not sell as many pay-per-views as Conor versus Khabib did. Would be very successful, would certainly clear 1 million buys, I think. It's not getting to 2-4, right? I just don't think that this fight is doing that. So why would there be a $30 million flat or a guarantee of that? It's just not reasonable to think that that's what the UFC would be comfortable with doing. So to me, this screams that once there is a number like 30 million out there, as opposed to ephemeral ideas of FU money or whatever, then there's a world where that's harder to negotiate against, where because to fans, it's pretty easy to make the case for Jon Jones in this circumstance, right? Like, okay, he's only asking for $30 million. That's less than most boxers make. The UFC makes $1 billion a year. Like for him, the GOAT, the guy you spent all year in 2024 pumping up as the greatest fighter to ever spit, like, why wouldn't he be worth $30 million? And so my guess is that they want that number removed so it is no longer an anchor point where fans could pretty reasonably go, oh, yeah, they should just pay him 30 million. If 30 million is the number he wants to fight Tom Aspinall, they should pay that. Why wouldn't they pay that? Because it makes them look bad.
Guy, what do you think? Do you think this is just like a simple thing and I'm overthinking this, or is this a negotiation play? Because Joe Rogan is Joe Rogan. No one's gonna be mad at Joe if Dana does an interview or does like some sort of media thing or a press conference, it's like, yeah, love Joe Rogan, but that was bullshit. You think people are going to come down on Joe Rogan? Hell no. They'll let it go. They'll let it slide, and it's not a big deal. But Joe coming out publicly and saying what he said, is there a reason for this, or is this just a simple thing?
Yeah, I agree with Jed. I think it's just another play by Dana because also if Jon Jones comes out or if Joe Rogan comes out saying that Jon Jones wants $20 million and next week the UFC announced this fight, what's the message saying like Jon Jones getting paid 30 million or anything closer to that? So it sends a message to for a UFC fan, for MMA fan, it's great. If you think they are finally paying their biggest star money he deserves, but it sends a message to other UFC stars. It sends a message to the Alex Pereiras, to the Sean O'Malley's, so all that's okay. If so, I can do the same thing. I can go publicly and say I want $10 million or I'm retiring, and the UFC will give me that. So it creates this chaos. It's something. It could be a way of the UFC to control their stars. I'm not saying the UFC is gonna pay Jon Jones $30 million, but they don't need other fighters to think that the UFC is gonna pay him $30 million.
Guy, is this fight happening in 2025? The amount of positivity, the amount of confidence that I've seen from the masses that this fight happens in 2025, it is off the charts. I was in that room with Dana White in Tampa, Florida after that fight card. He 100% guaranteed this fight was going to happen. I'm actually stunned by the optimism here. So after this whole thing, has it changed your view on it at all? Is this fight going to happen?
Nah. Dana White saying it is happening 100% doesn't mean anything. He can't force Jon Jones to take this fight. And clearly, Jon Jones doesn't have any interest in taking this fight. Never for 1 second, Jon Jones sounded interested in fighting Tom Aspinall. It's always the other way around. He's talking about fighting Alex Pereira. He wanted to fight Steve Miocic. Never. You won't find anywhere a clip of Jon Jones or a tweet of him saying he wants to fight Tom Aspinall or he thinks he's an interest in fighting any of that. So I don't have any reason to be optimistic about this fight. I think it should happen, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Jed, is this a climb bet for you that this fight does or does not happen? You don't think it happens? You're trying to be more positive and optimistic in 2025, a new positive Jed. Is this a climb bet that this fight does not happen for you?
No, because there's a world where it does. I just don't think that we live in that world. I have never thought we were going to live in that world. I didn't think we were going to live in that world before we got to UFC 309 fight week. And that fight week made it abundantly clear just how little interest Jon has in this matchup. Previously, I thought maybe Jon could have been interested. Like maybe he was playing some sort of savvy game to build up this fight. He is just transparently doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. And I get it. I think that's a very reasonable position for him to take. The juice, I would argue that a win over Tom Aspinall would actually be pretty significant for his career as the cherry on top of an obviously a wonderful career. I can understand the argument and his belief that it does nothing for him, that beating Tom Aspinall is the same as beating Anthony Smith or whatever. I don't think that that's true, but I get how he can view it that way. And it is undeniably more risk. It is absolutely more risk. This is not to say that Tom Aspinall would beat Jon Jones definitively, but I think what I learned more than anything from UFC 309 is that Jon Jones is no longer at his best, and he knows that he is no longer at his best. He is fundamentally aware that his fastball is not the same anymore because he has been doing this for 20 years and he is older and time comes for everyone. And so the way he spoke pretty honestly candidly about I don't want to fight the young dude who's good. Let me fight Alex Pereira. I want to fight the legend matchups that I can get. Make me believe that he understands that maybe he can beat Tom Aspinall, but that it is a tall order and that the juice is just not worth the squeeze for him unless the UFC puts something in that juice, they give him an extra bump. And I have just never believed that they will pay the price it requires, because they have never paid the price that it requires to do these things. Dana likes to say, we make the fights everyone wants to happen. There's a long track record of the UFC not making matchups people wanted to. And ultimately, the reason they didn't make those fights always comes down to money. They didn't want to pay John and Francis to fight each other when they were both under contract and wanted to, because both men were asking for more money. They don't want to pay the price to put on the fights that people want. They put on most of the fights you want to see, because mostly they have all the leverage in the world. But in certain circumstances like this one, they can't force him to do it. They can only incentivize him to compete, and they are just not going to be willing to do that.
Yeah, John's in a terrific position right now. He can retire. He can take a break. He can do whatever he wants. And if he gets the itch, he can come back and fight for the belt or do whatever he wants. Just a little tease for round 4. I'm gonna knock this out real quick. Jed, I'll start with you. Buy or sell? Tom Aspinall's next fight will be him defending the interim heavyweight title.
It's a really good question. I will buy. I think it will be categorically insane, right? Like, for an interim champion to have defended the belt more than the undisputed champion. I think that they are going to be in a position where they need Tom to fight. They've already got a bunch of title fights front loaded. They're just going to need champs to fight in these pay-per-views coming up. Tom Aspinall is a champ. There's the Cyril Gane matchup, despite Gane's piss poor performance against Volkov. Like, you could just do that. And I think that they won't be willing to let go of the Jon Jones thing, because they don't want to do that. They believed Khabib was coming back forever when he clearly wasn't. I think they think if they just wait him out, he might take less and do it. And so they will keep not doing it, because what do they really care? So I will buy and say, yeah, they are. Tom's fight will be against Cyril Gane to defend the interim belt.
Do you agree, Guy, or do you think they strip John and Tom becomes the champ?
No way. Tom's next fight is definitely going to be a defense of the interim title, much like Hannah Baron had to do. He defended his interim title twice before the UFC finally stripped Dominick Cruz, and now why would they?
Is it really twice?
Yeah, it was twice. Yeah. So why would they do anything different with Jon Jones? Like, they won this fight. So if they strip Jon Jones, like, they're not helping this case. Like, so they just keep Jon with the belt and just wait a year. There's a good chance Jon Jones ends this year still as UFC champ without even fighting. I wouldn't be surprised at that.
Yep, that's my prediction. And it's a contract year. UFC's negotiating a TV deal, and the deal looks a little spicier for a lot of these networks and streaming platforms if Jon Jones is holding the UFC heavyweight title, whether he fights or not. So we'll see what happens here. We will move on. Guy mentioned a name that we're going to talk about in a matter of seconds. The point for round 1
We're talking about Renan Barão?
Eddie Wineland or Dominick Cruz.
Oh, yeah. The point, it goes to Guilherme Cruz. Nicely done, Guilherme. Mostly that was anti-Jed using the dog for a point, and then me just feeling bad for waiting all these years to ask you to come on the show because I'm a prick. So that's an anti-point against myself. But look, we've talked a lot about a bunch of the 2025 schedule for the UFC. At least we've talked about the pay-per-view title fights, UFC 311, which comes up next Saturday, and I cannot freaking wait. We get UFC 312 coming up in February, and we've talked about other things that they have in store for us. But the UFC is hitting the road for a fight night event on February 22nd. Of course, they have the Saudi Arabia card February 1st. Then we get UFC 312. Then we're back to the world's most famous Apex, the middle of February. And then we're heading to Seattle for a fight night event. Seattle gets the golden ticket pulled, and we recently found out a few days ago what the top 2 fights are going to be. We're going to start with the main event, Jed Meshew. We have former 2-division champion Henry Cejudo facing Song Yadong, 5 rounds, a lot at stake for both guys, in my opinion, in one of the UFC's deepest divisions. Not the best division, but one of the top 3 divisions. I would say more so on the Henry Cejudo side. You like this one for the main event?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little weird, right? Like, to the best of my knowledge, neither of these men have a deep connection to Seattle, right? But so like it's a little just sort of out there, but the UFC's been doing that a lot lately. Of just like, I don't know, here's some good fighters. They can main event this card that they have no connection to. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Henry Cejudo is deeply connected, or Song is. Like, but I don't think so. Tell me if I'm wrong. So that's a little odd for it to be the main event in like those terms. But in terms of the fight itself, it's obviously a terrific fight. Cejudo's in this sort of weird place because he's fought the one time, right? Let me make sure I'm not speaking out of my mind. Yeah, like he came back and he fought Marab, and that's just it. Like he hadn't done anything, and so there's an idea that he is still sort of a top 10-ish bantamweight because he looked good in spurts against certainly the first round. He looked pretty decent against Marab. He was a former champion. We know his qualifications, but he's also much older, hasn't competed a lot, coming off of retirement at one point in time. Like we really have no idea how good he is, whereas Song Yadong was a super hot shot prospect, kind of stumbled a little bit. He's still incredibly young and very, very good, kind of surging right now. And so it's a really good tell me who you are fight. Like, I'm very interested in the matchup itself. I love that it is 5 rounds. I think that is this sort of matchup deserves 5 rounds. My only qualm with it is like, it's just weird to happen in Seattle because there are other Seattle-based fighters competing on here that might make more sense, but good matchup. There are other announced bantamweight matchups that I hate a lot more than this one, but yeah, like this, no issues with this. Great fight.
Who knows? Maybe Henry Cejudo is a big Pearl Jam fan. Maybe Song Yadong loved some Nirvana, went and saw them back in the day. I don't know. I mean, he's a young man.
Like,
but
you know that I can't speak for Song Yadong. Henry Cejudo is not clever enough to just like connect with Seattle in that fashion. He's just not going to do it. At best, he'll like rock Starbucks that week instead of Dunkin' or whatever.
Yeah, Henry's really not in a powerful negotiation place. He's kind of just, this is what we got for you. It's a main event. Like, you're kind of lucky to get that right now. He has had 2 fights since he came back. There is a real world that on any other given night. Yeah, Aljamain Sterling, like the way that fight was judged, like there's a real world where we're talking about Henry Cejudo being a multi-time bantamweight champion, but it shouldn't have gone down that way. Ultimately, the right guy won, and then we saw what happened in the Marab fight. But Henry Cejudo versus Song Yadong. Cejudo really needs this one, and Song Yadong, what a feather in his cap it would be if he could beat a guy like Henry Cejudo. You like this for the main event, final fight in February for the UFC?
Yeah, I'm not in a position to judge if that makes sense for Seattle fans. Like, it's like me asking you if a random Brazilian fighting in Uberlândia or fighting in Curitiba makes sense for the market. So that I can say, but I don't hate the matchup. I think it's going to be an interesting fight. Cejudo's been talking a lot for a long time, and it's finally coming back. I had no idea if he was really fighting again, but I think it's a good matchup. But I'm sure you're gonna ask that, but I just can't ignore that the UFC is giving Dominick Cruz another fight that isn't against Jose Aldo, and it just pisses me off that they're right there. They're right there in the same division, and Dominick Cruz is fighting a guy that Jose Aldo already beat. So it doesn't make any sense. Sorry if I'm jumping to another question, but I just can't take it, man. It's ludicrous. It's insane that the UFC is doing this fighting instead of doing Dominic against Aldo, man. It really pisses me off, man. It's so dumb. It's so dumb, man.
So just to be clear, Guilherme, you love this fight. You love Dominick Cruz versus Rob Font. That's what you're trying to tell the world, right? Love it.
Yeah. That's the message. Yeah.
Jed, what do you want to say? You look like you're about to jump out of your chair.
Guy's correct. And the Aldo Font or the Font Cruz thing is the fight I was alluding to. And I said there are other bantamweight fights that I don't care for. I just looked this up because I looked it up twice to make sure that I wasn't insane. Do you know how long it's been since Henry Cejudo has won a fight?
Dominick
Stipe
Cruz?
Miocic has a more recent win than Henry Cejudo does. This is like, how is he ranked right now? He's ranked 7 in the UFC. Oh, God, that hurts. Well, I'm glad he's fighting again.
And why not do even Henry against Jose Aldo? It's a much better fight too. Like
that would have a lot of fights make sense.
They were expected to fight before the pandemic hit. They were fighting for the title, I think. Yeah. So yes, there were a lot of options. The UFC just chose the wrong one. Shocking.
And again, this feels like a fight that would make sense if Song Yadong has like deep ties to Seattle, but he doesn't. So it's just sort of weird, but it's fine.
Or do it in China.
Well, that would be an ideal place to do it. But when are they going back to China?
Yeah,
they were just there not that long ago, right?
Did Henry win
they're there in the fall.
Olympics in China? Did he? Or was it in China?
What was that?
Song? No, Song didn't fight on that card.
Did Henry win the Olympics in Beijing? Or was
it 08. It was 08, yeah.
Oh, there you go. So there's ties there too. Look at that. Wow. There are many other places that this fight would have made more sense.
He's a better matchmaker than Sean Shelby. That's what we've learned today.
Yes, we have. This is I was a little stunned by it because I've been saying for a while, like, you got to do Jose Aldo, but if you don't, then I don't mind Rob Font. You get 2 veterans getting after it, but
it's your fault.
We're in a very strange place right now because Dominick Cruz told TMZ not that long ago that this is probably it. Like, this is the one last dance, early 2025. He's going to do the thing one more time. And it's going to be Rob Font as his final opponent, which, I'm happy for Rob that he's getting this fight. He's wanted this one forever, but it just seems just wicked random. Does it not? I don't know.
He's like the 6th best option. Like, Rob Font is a better option than like Montel Jackson would be, right? Like, because that's just an
Paulo Bautista.
But like Jose Aldo, Davidson Figueiredo, honestly, a Cejudo rematch frankly probably makes more sense. My personal favorite, I've always wanted to see Dominick Cruz fight Corey Sandhagen because they're the same dude, just palette swapped, like Sub-Zero and Scorpion in the old Street Fighter games are the same dude. Like, there's just a lot of other matchups that make a ton more sense than this one. So I hate it, but it's also fine. Like, it's a whatever matchup.
Yeah. Maybe this means Jose Aldo's getting Sean O'Malley next. That'd be fun. He deserves it after getting the big fat hose job in the Mario Batista fight, which kind of killed my entire fantasy vibes for 2024. So let's real quick lineup as a whole, Jed. So we have these 2 fights. We have Edson Barboza versus Steve Garcia, Anthony Hernandez versus Brennan Allen 2, Gian Silva versus Melski Bagdasarian, Ketlin Vieira versus Macy Chiasson, Curtis Blades in a rando fight with the promotional newcomer, and some other good matches.
Like, that's PFL veteran Rizvan Kuniev, thank you very much, who is like the best guy of all time. I love him so much. Do you know why I love him? Let me make sure that I'm 1,000,000,000% correct.
Please tell us why once you confirm.
I believe that you were on it. He got popped for every drug known to mankind when he beat Renan Fajeda. Like, he UD'd Renan Fajeda in PFL and then got popped for anabolic steroids, drostanolone, matenolone, boldenone, 19-norepinephrine. He got popped for everything in the pharmacy. And then the UFC was like, what if we sign this dude to the Contender Series? it's so absurd, and I love it the most. This is the promotion that's serious about drug testing, and they're like, yeah, this guy who popped for everything, no fight since then. Come back immediately to Contender Series. We got you, homie.
Yeah, and then we'll give you Curtis Blades in your first fight in the UFC. It's insane. But the card's pretty good. I mean, that's a weird fight, but this card's pretty darn good.
Yeah, perfectly, middle of the road show.
How many fights? Yeah.
1, 2.5, 3.5. So that's up to 4 now. 5, 6. I don't know, like 6.5 to 7.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's a perfectly good card,
Yeah,
but
I don't know what kind of scale.
These are the cards we should expect for road shows. Like these are where they should be, and also like Michael Chiesa doesn't have an opponent yet. That might bump it up a little bit. Like it's going to be a good time if you're in Seattle. I would go.
Guy, what's your scale? I don't know if you
have your. Yeah,
I
don't do fart scale, but it's a solid one. Even better than those at the Apex, those random ones. Because again, that's why the UFC should go on the road again. They keep doing cards at the Apex. They don't have to sell tickets, so they just don't care. They do whatever. They just get 10 random fights and build a card. So going to arena, having to sell tickets, incentivize them to do good cards, and that's a good one.
Yeah, they sell tickets with bad cards too. Look at St. Louis and Louisville. I mean, those are gate-breaking record cards with Derek Lewis versus Rodrigo Nascimento as a main event and still breaking records. They're absolutely on fire right now. But that's Seattle. Let's talk about this Saturday, the UFC at the aforementioned world's most famous Apex for UFC Vegas 101. The point for round 2 goes to Jed Meshew, 1-1. Nicely done. Ooh. The crowd goes mild. Let the confetti fall upon the UFC Vegas 101. It's a fight card with 14 fights. We're back at the Apex. This is the go-home show for UFC 311, which is a fantastic pay-per-view lineup, and we'll talk a lot about that next week. But, Guy, we got 14 big old fights. We got Amanda Ribas versus Mackenzie Dern 2 in the main event. Where does this one rank for you? How excited are you for the first card on the road to UFC Vegas 200?
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, I like the rematch. Being a long time since the first one. I hate when the UFC does unnecessary rematches like a year later. It's been a long time. Amanda Ribas she was just 1-0 in the UFC, and Mackenzie Dern was 2-0. They were two. Dern was really green at the time. She was coming back from pregnancy, and I didn't get her first when they announced the rematch, but speaking with both ladies, it's a nice fight. It's a nice fight because it's an important moment in the division because Weili Zhang is finally fighting Tatiana Suarez. And the winner of this fight could get in the position to challenge for the title next. I know Viana is out there. Viana clearly deserves it, but Amanda Ribas and Mackenzie Dern both got wins over Viana a long time ago, but they do. So it's an important fight for the division. And the first fight was a fun one from what I remember, and this one should be fun too.
Yeah, I think that was Dern's first fight after the birth of her child. She had a little bit of a layoff. Ribas kind of pieced her up on the feet, and we saw her kind of humanized a little bit, and we got to find out if her game could grow, and at times it has. Jed, thoughts on the card as a whole, and what is on the line here between Amanda Ribas and Mackenzie Dern? Amanda Ribas at Media Day, pretty interesting. She feels, hey, there's so many rematches happening in these divisions. There's not a ton of fresh matchups. If I go out there and beat Mackenzie Dern again, I'm right here. Give me the call. I'm ready.
Nothing is on the line in this matchup. I guess we'll start there. It's better to win than to lose, and Ribas isn't totally wrong. She's top 10 right now. A win. Maybe she fights. I don't. Yeah, who's Yasmin Lucindo's fighting somebody soon? I don't remember. Maybe she runs it she's not that far off just because strawweight has had nothing new or interesting happen in it in the past 2 years, but nothing is really at stake this weekend other than 2 paychecks and kind of keeping yourself near the top of the table, even if you're still probably a couple of fights away from it. Overall card, look, it's not a good card, but I don't care. Doesn't matter. It's our first card in a month, so it's fine for this to be easing our way back in, right? We're just dipping a toe back into the fight waters to get ourselves ready for 311 next week, which is an exceptional card. There are some interesting things happening this weekend, right? The main event is a good fight objectively, even if we've seen it, and I frankly don't think there will be a ton of differentiation between the two fights. I think this will play out very similarly. But it's still a good fight between top 10 strawweight, so it's always worth my time. The Chris Curtis Roman Kopylov fight is also a top 20 middleweights going at it. It's a very good fight. A couple of prospects I'm super high on, so interested in seeing them make their debuts, develop, etc. But it's not a great card. It doesn't have to be. This is, hey guys, we haven't been here for a month, and we're not just going to throw you right into 311. Let's remember how to do this. Let's whet the appetite a little bit. Let's have some fights. It's early in the day for us East Coasters. It's a 4 p.m. start, which is always terrific. So perfectly fine way for us to get our 2025 started, even if it's not the most exciting thing that's ever happened.
I like the early start time. I actually think the main card will be pretty entertaining. I think there's a lot of get or get got moments. There's a lot of prospects on here that are set up to succeed, I would say. And there's a couple of big favorite prospects on this card who could lose. Like, there are a lot of big upsets in 2024. Like, we could start off with a couple of big ones here. Like, this card it's pretty solid. Like, for an Apex card, there is a lot to like here. There's the occasional who the hell is that guy or who the hell is that gal, but it's to be expected here. So I ask you, Guilherme Cruz, I'll go back to you. When the dust settles, if you have to make a prediction, who will be the sleeper standout from UFC Vegas 101? Not Mackenzie Dern, not Amanda Ribas, not even a Santiago Ponzinibbio. Someone who we may not even be talking about right now, but come Monday, come Tuesday, Wednesday, what have you, leading into 311, we're still going to be thinking about this person's performance this past Saturday.
I mean, I hope it's on the Cesar Almeida and Abdul Razak Al-Hassan's fight, because they have the potential to deliver nice knockouts, good finishes, but Cesar Almeida's past few fights weren't that exciting. Some of his fault, some of Kopilov's fault, because they just decided to wrestle instead of standing and going to war against a kickboxer. I don't blame him. But if I had to choose someone that isn't talking about down from the prelims, I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be Marco Tulio. And he's fighting Pocheria in the middleweight division. And Tulio is a solid prospect. And Pocheria has not done great things in the UFC, including his win of Shogun. I don't know why he did that. Shame on him.
I don't know why he did that either.
Yeah, he was brought there to lose, and he won. I don't get it. I still don't get it. So I think Marco Tulio has the potential to get a nice knockout here, and given Iho's record in the UFC, like knowing that he's fought big names already and all that I think it's gonna be if I had to pick someone that's going under the radar, I think it's gonna be Marco Tulio.
Jed, what do you think? One name. I know there's two probably at the top of your mind right now, but give me one.
So I will say I think Tulio's probably the best choice for this because Potieri is a guy that people at least kind of know, and he's probably going to wax him. And so that will stand out in people's minds. I think Tulio's an okay prospect. I don't think he's a great prospect. There are two prospects who I think are very, very good. I will default my answer to Jacoby Smith as my choice here. Austin Bashi is also very good. He's fighting Christian Rodriguez. C-Rod's a really good fighter, and so he may not dazzle as much. Jacoby Smith's taking on Preston Parsons, and I think he's incredibly raw. Like, he needs a lot of development. Superior athlete, creative, dynamic, can hit the shit out of you. I think he's probably going to grease up Preston Parsons pretty impressively, and so I will go Jacoby Smith for my sleeper exciting guy of the weekend.
Good pick. Good picks from both of you, gentlemen. All right, we're gonna have some fun in round 4, and then we'll make a big announcement, and then we'll figure out how we're gonna go from there. But the point for round 3 goes to Jed Mishu, 2-1. Nicely done.
You're done. I'm knocking you out this round, Gee.
All right. This is what we're gonna do. So, like I said, we're gonna have a little bit of fun here. If you guys were with us on Sunday, AK and I did our on to the next one 2025 predictions extravaganza. You guys sent a billion buy sell questions, but we were only able to get to just a few. I mean, we got to a bunch, but we weren't able to get to all of them. But there are some interesting questions. I kind of miny mode these, so I selected 3 that we'll go. Oh, Casey, did you actually pick some?
Well, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I did have some that we didn't use from the.
Oh yeah, I got some too. Okay. Yeah, pull them up. Let's do it that way.
We're ready.
Well, I love this.
All right.
Yeah, let's do it that way.
This one actually is very interesting because at the time, well, I'll put it out there. At the time, it didn't make sense. I hope they're all very interesting. Here we go.
Buy or sell. Jed, I'll start with you. Dana White will have a U.S. governmental role of some sort announced in 2025 while still doing the UFC role. And by the way, now a member of the Meta board of directors. So the man's resume is getting a little bit steeper.
I'm priced into buying this because in my big prediction, we wrote an article on the site for predictions for this year. We asked for one big bold prediction, and my big bold prediction was Dana White steps down from his current role in the UFC, which I still think is very possible. I would say this is less likely now that he has taken a board position on Meta, but I'm kind of priced into it, and I will buy this just because, I don't know, are we counting Doge as a governmental organization? Like, he and Elon can just pretend to do shit or whatever, and that feels right up his alley. Look, our soon-to-be president is out here trying to annex Canada and Greenland and Mexico and renaming the Gulf of Mexico. You can't convince me that man won't, on a whim, just be like, you know who runs a tight ship? Dana White. He'll fix it all. So I'm going to buy. Like, I just, like, the last few days have been pretty wild. And so I feel like it's honestly one of the less crazy things to say, his good friend Dana White may get a job doing something.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he just creates a role for Dana to have him as a member of the government. But I sell this. I don't think he's gonna leave the UFC, and I don't think he's gonna take a job with the government.
Not one that's public, anywaes.
Yeah,
maybe he'll be a government consultant under the radar of some kind. Maybe there you go.
Yeah, that'd be him and Elon and Vivek or whatever.
This is absolutely like an on the radar question right now, which is friggin' wild. All right,
we live in a fun timeline.
We sure do. What a time. Buyer said Ilia Topuria will compete in the UFC's lightweight division at least once in 2025. Guy, you go first.
I buy this.
Why?
Yeah, because I think his next fight is gonna be at 145, but I think he's gonna fight for the lightweight title before the end of the year. I think so. Because I don't expect Islam moving up before the end of the year. So that kind of creates an opening. So I think the UFC is going to do that because, again, back to the TV deals, the UFC needs like they want to make tons of noises to get the best TV deal possible. So that's definitely on the table.
If there's one thing I know about Jed Meshew is that he loves when champions who have multiple fighters, multiple contenders in line waiting for their shot, they tease moving up or down a division with no risk, really. They could just go back down or go back up and still be the champion. But I know Jed loves this so much, and he's probably going to buy this, right? Ilia Topuria going to lightweight at least for one fight as champion.
Couldn't sell this harder. There's just not a world. I will be flabbergasted if it happens. The only way I think it happens is if Ilia puts his money where his mouth is and bails on the featherweight belt, and just says, "Screw it, I don't want to do it," and pulls a full blown Conor McGregor of, "I'm just going to leave this thing because I would like to go try and do something else that has no risk attached to it." He has 3 contenders in line for him. I know that he don't want to fight him. He gonna fight him. He's gonna fight Volkanovski sometime in the next couple of months, likely. Maybe in the summer if it goes that long. And best case scenario for him is he delays this so long that Diego Lopez and Movsarevloev have to fight again, and he fights the winner. But he has 2 undeniable title challengers ahead of him, and should be 3 because he should be lining them up and trying to knock down those dudes. And if he gets through all 3 of them, then we could talk about it. But until then, it ain't happening. Just be a goddamn adult, do your fucking job, and defend and clean out your weight class. Because people were talking shit about you before you won the belt, saying you had not beaten enough people. You did not deserve the title fight. You can't then beat 2 dudes and be like, "I've done it. I've defeated all the featherweights. Huzzah." No, do your fucking job, shut the fuck up, and fight your goddamn contenders. This is not that hard. I would pay $300 to the next champion who wins the belt for the first time and says, "I would like to fight all of the contenders, please. I would like to fight all of them immediately. And that's all I'm going to do for the next 2 years." Because it'll be the first time in the last 4 years that's happened. This drives me fucking insane. Fight your goddamn dudes.
It's so cute, like Jed expecting a UFC champion to be mature and not ask for crazy things. Good for you.
We used to be a goddamn society, Guy. We used to have champions just defend their belts. That was literally all they did. And when we look back in the history of the greatest fighters of all time, you know what all of them have? A bunch of goddamn title defenses, because it's all they did. George St. Pierre did not come out every weekend and be like, "I would like to fight for the middleweight belt. I don't care about this next contender." Demetrius Johnson didn't come out and be like, "I will only fight TJ Dillashaw and the rest of you flyweights can suck my ass. I'm holding the belt while I do it." They just put together a win streak over quality opposition. And now you know what they are? The greatest fighters who've ever fucking lived. It's not that hard. Do your job.
I love that rant so much because there was a lot of F-bombs and expletives, but then when you quoted the fighter being like, "I would like to fight all the contenders, please," it was just the best. We were all over the place. We were so polite. We weren't polite.
It is so frustrating to very clearly the history of this sport and the people we consider to be the greatest ever have one unifying thing in common, and nobody wants to do that shit. Not a single new champion is interested in that. It is mind-bogglingly frustrating.
I love it. Next question. Terrific. Buy or sell. Amanda Nunes announces she's returning sometime during the year. Jed, what say you?
Buy. In our champions prediction column, I predict Amanda Nunes to be the women's bantamweight champion at the end of the year. I think whoever wins the inevitable Kayla Harrison-Juliana Pena matchup, Nunes is the next person who she will fight the winner of that. I think it's going to be Kayla Harrison. I think she teased coming out last year. I think she won't come out to stay out, but she'll come out for a one-time, let's do a big thing, and she will return if not return by the end of this year, certainly have it announced that they're targeting that. But I think by the end of this year, she fights.
Guy, what do you think?
I buy it. Yeah. In my Champions prediction for the end of the year, Jed did not include in the story because he didn't ask for it. But I said that Kayla would end this year as a 2-division champion because I think he's beating Juliana Pena, and Amanda Nunes is coming back, but it's going to be a 145, and Kayla is going to beat her. So I think Kayla ends as a 2-division champion. So yes, I think she's coming back this year.
Sheesh, what a bold prediction right there. The UFC bringing back the women's featherweight title and Kayla beating Nunes. Holy smokes. All right. We got any more? Buy or sell, Fighting Nerds fighter will fight for a title by the end of 2025. Guillermo Cruz.
I mean, there's Carlos Prates at welterweight, and Caio Borralho at middleweight. Those are the best options. But I don't think maybe it's hard. It's hard. Caio Borralho, I don't see him fighting for the title this year, and Carlos Prates depends on if Shavkat wins, he's fighting Makhachev next. Good Carlos, because Carlos Prates was offered. It wasn't a title shot, but he was offered he was asked about fighting December against Shavkat before the UFC asked Ian Gary, or after. I mean, he was offered that fight, so he's there. He's really hot right now, but I don't think there's enough time for them to fight for a title this year.
Jed?
I'm going to buy it. Obviously, this could go poorly, but I think there's a real chance Borralho gets it because I think the middleweight belt will be defended 3 times. We've got it coming up in February. I think either DDP or Strickland, again, I'm favoring DDP, but I think either of them ends up fighting in the summer against Khamzat Chimaev, and then I think we can get a winter middleweight title defense. Borralho is right on the cusp of it. He's probably going to have to fight one dude, get one win, whoever that ends up being. I don't know if he's booked or not. I don't think he is, but I think that he is right there in play. So he picks up a win. He gets to fight for a belt. Then I am getting the equity in Prates maybe having another insane year like he did last year and just sort of surging into it, which would be sick. Are we counting Alex Pereira? We all saw the photos. He trained with Fighting Nerds. So if he counts, then I win this for sure because Alex Pereira will be fighting for at least one belt, his own, if not multiple. But I'll buy it anyway. Let's have some fun. Let's be optimistic.
I'm more on the Guy side. I'm with you, Guy.
Yeah, I still don't expect Khamzat Chimaev to fight for a title. I mean, he can't even enter the US, right? Because I mean, is the UFC giving a title shot to a fighter that can't even enter the US?
We've never confirmed that that's true, and I would also suggest that that's probably not going to be the same moving forward.
I mean, yeah, I've talked to his coach at the time, FIFO, who said that he has passport issues that would probably stop him from entering the US. And
I don't think there are passport issues with President Donald Trump. I think those issues go away real fast. But
as much as Trump likes Dana White, is he going to just ignore Kadyrov and those things?
Yes. I think the answer is yes.
Yeah. I'm not that sure. I mean, I'm not American, so it's just I don't know. I mean, I know Trump is crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be an issue for him.
All right, I'm asked one more. I don't know if Casey's going to pull this up. Casey, pull up the Jim Miller question if he got it.
Oh, okay. Hold on one moment.
Jimbo.
Oh no, I don't have it. So go ahead.
Okay. All right, here we go. Jed, I will begin with you. Buy or sell? Jim Miller has more UFC fights in 2025 than Jon Jones, Conor McGregor, Nick Diaz, Nate Diaz, and Colby Covington combined.
Sell. That's an easy sell. That's just a lot. That's a lot of people on the one side of it. It was what, Jon, Connor, Colby, the Diaz brothers.
And the Diaz brothers. More UFC fights in 2025 than all of those names combined.
Yeah, so I think Connor's fighting twice this year. I really do. I've written about this a lot. We talked about this at some point in time. I think this may be deeply cynical, and so I apologize if it is. If you wanted Conor McGregor to return to fighting, I think his outside of the cage issues were the best incentive to make that happen, because he can't really do anything. He didn't have to. He obviously has all the money in the world. He can do whatever he wants to. But Hollywood won't touch him after being found liable for sexual assault. So he can't do movies right now, right? Like, he can't do that. And ultimately, there's now a stigma. There is a thing around him that makes him persona non grata in a lot of spaces. Doesn't make him persona non grata here. This sport has always had a very high tolerance for that sort of thing in general. And B, it is, when something like this happens, the way you can return to being beloved is wait it out or remind people why they liked you. And Conor hasn't given us a reason to remember why we liked him in so long, because he hasn't competed. So I think Conor is absolutely fighting once, and I think he will fight twice this year. I think we'll get him in the summer, and then we'll get him at the end of the year. I don't think Jim Miller's fighting more than twice this year. So then Jim Miller might fight once this year. But if he fights twice, I think Conor can tie him. And if not, Colby is probably fighting this year, though. Who against? It'll be weird, but there's maybe a Masvidal fight. The Colby fight can happen. And it wouldn't stun me if one of the Diaz brothers found their way into the cage at some point. So I will sell this. I think that the group of fighters you gave me will fight more than Jim Miller.
Guy, do you agree? By the way, Jim Miller, 2024, fought 3 times. His last fight was in November. He only fought for 2 minutes and 44 seconds. So I would probably expect him to be booked in Q1 pretty easily. There's a real world, he fights 3 times. So do you agree with Jed?
Yeah, I agree. I think Colby fights this year, maybe twice. Depends on who he fights first and if he can win. I do expect him to fight for all the reasons Jed said. But the Diaz brothers, I don't think they're fighting this year in the UFC. And Jon Jones, who the hell knows? So I think if he's gonna end up as a tie, like three or 2 fights for Jim Miller, and the same for the combo between Colby and Conor. I think it's gonna be a tie. I think it's gonna be not more or less. It's gonna be exactly the same number.
All right, we shall see. Great answers from both of you guys. There's still a bunch more. Maybe we'll use these throughout different points sporadically, but the point for round 4 goes to it's 2025. It's a family show, Jed Meshew, which means Guilherme Cruz gets the point automatically, 2-2. All this language, this is unbelievable.
It's true. I killed our monetization. My bad.
What a dick. All right.
To bring my daughter here, like to win your hearts. He brought a dog.
Yes. He brought the dog. He brought everything. Trying to cheat. PEDs, if you will.
Trying to cheat.
He's trying to cheat, you know. You always got to cheat in MMA.
Otto, get back up here.
Oh, he's going to try to cheat again. All right, final question. It's the knockout round. One question will decide it all. Each of these gentlemen will have 60 seconds to answer said question. And then we'll bring into the peeps, and we'll give you a little bit of time to cast your vote, because we'll break some news at the end of the knockout round. So, Jed, you're the champ.
I want to go first.
You want to go first?
I want to go first.
All right.
Set the tone, Mike.
Well, we're going to put you a little bit of a disadvantage, because you have even said that Guilherme Cruz is the better matchmaker of the two of you. So we're going to put both of you to the test, because we talked about UFC Seattle. It is a homecoming, if you will, for Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa is going to fight at UFC Seattle, but right now he is fighting TBD. And as we know, TBD is not an actual fighter. They're going to have to fill that spot with somebody else. And you want to have a feel-good moment for a guy like Michael Chiesa, who is part of the UFC broadcast team, does some analyst work. So maybe we try to provide a feel-good moment for Mr. Chiesa. So, Jed, put on your Sean Shelby hat. Michael Chiesa versus who is the replacement for TBD for UFC Seattle on February 22nd? And go.
Michael Chiesa versus... This is actually a pretty tough one to matchmake for, because a lot of people that I would have normally chosen, like Vicente Luque, would make sense, but for the fact that he has already lost to Vicente Luque, and like, are we clamoring for a rematch there? I think you're right. I think you are looking to get him a W, or at least a winnable fight, and you kind of want it to be a big name, or at least a name enough. You're not. I'm just scrolling, looking through names. There are not great options at this point in time. So, F it. Let's just do a fight that I would prefer the opponent get booked against somebody else, but let's give him a big opportunity against a big name at least. Frankly, if this fight got booked, it should be the main event, but it could be our co-main. I mean, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in there. Like, Wonderboy's a big name. It's a kind of good fight. Let's do it. Let's get a little goofy with it. That's my fight.
Michael Chiesa versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. We go to the expert matchmaker himself, Dominick Cruz. Who's Michael Chiesa? If you had the mighty pencil, who is Michael Chiesa fighting at UFC Seattle? Go.
That's a tough one. That's a hard question, because he's in a point of his career that it makes no sense to book him against a top-ranked opponent just so he gets a win and fades away to the sunset to enjoy retirement. So I would sign someone back to the UFC to fight him. Kevin Lee was interested in fighting in the Contender Series. He was interested in trying to get back to the UFC. Just run that back. Get him, Kevin Lee, back in the UFC. He's just signed with GFL. I have no confidence GFL is going to hold any event this year. I hope they prove me wrong. So do that fight, because Kevin Lee, I know Michael Chiesa would love to get that fight back. There's a ton of history there. So yeah, Chiesa and Kevin Lee is the fight to make.
All right.
And
hey, listen, Hey, listen. Unlike our friend Brian Campbell, you didn't need not only the full minute but 3 minutes, as BC likes to do on the show. But both interesting matches. Look at this freaking guy.
Yeah,
that is a cuddly ass dog. Look at that.
He's very fluffy.
I mean, come on.
He's very fluffy.
He's fluffy.
Right now.
He's no Shiloh, but adorable.
Well, no dog is as soft as Shiloh is. That's the softest dog that's ever been. But he's very cuddly.
The official dog of MMAfighting.com. All right, cast your votes. As you're casting your votes, let's talk about the schedule for next week. For BTL fans, normally this is a Thursday program, and especially during a pay-per-view fight week for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, it's usually a very good day to have between the links and discuss the comings and goings and the big fights and everything going on in the world of MMA. It will not be on Thursday next week. We are actually going to do the UFC 311 edition of BTL on Tuesday. It's Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's when BTL is going to happen. And I bet you're asking yourself, Mike, why? Why are we doing this? Because we have something else filling the time slot next Thursday. It's actually going to start a little bit later. It's going to start at 1 p.m. Eastern because, frankly, you guys have been asking for it for about 2.5 months now, about 11 to 12 weeks. When is this going to happen? When are we going to do it? This needs to happen again. I have more questions than I ever thought I would have. And you know what? There's so much rumor and innuendo going on around the MMA space when it comes to a certain promotion that it was time to do it again. So next Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we're doing it again. Town Hall Part 2. I didn't even know that there was a damn drum roll, but there you go. Don Davis back at 1 p.m. Eastern to answer my questions, to answer your questions about the 2025 season. From what I understand, news will be broken. There'll be some exciting changes announced. Some of these have already been reported. I don't think some of this stuff will surprise you, but there are other things going on that people want answers to, such as what's going on with Bellator, what's going on with Patricio Pitbull, what's going on with Patchy Mix. Are they going to get released? Are they not going to get released? Are they going to fight? All of these things and more. Don Davis will join us for 1 hour, and he will answer everything. There's nothing off limits, no holds barred. Don will answer all of our questions for an hour next Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. And from what I understand, at least this is what he told me, he ain't going on anybody else. He ain't going over to Uncrowned or to Ariel's show or anybody else. He is only coming here for 1 hour. This is the only place in MMA where he's going to answer all these questions.
Okay. Wow.
During the Don Davis announcement, too. This guy's a genius. Hello. You're done, Jed.
Oh, I need you back.
Oh, no. So, yes, there you go. Don Davis next week to answer all the questions. And this is just a family show. What a portrait this is. This is a thumbnail for the ages for the rematch between Jed and Guy. Casey is here, which means there must be a winner. Who is it?
We do have a winner, and the people have spoken. And today's winner with 67% of the votes is...
Damn.
Otto's best friend, Jed Meshew.
Woo!
Oh, he started with the dog right away. That was a brilliant strategy.
Ooh. You got to come out hard, Guy. You saved your big gun for too late. Oh, yeah, Otto.
Otto with the smile on his face.
I think
and
I could beat Phoenix with Otto in my corner.
Oh,
I think I could
by the way,
Phoenix Carnivale with Otto in my corner.
If there's one guarantee that I'm gonna do the old Dana White guarantee. We will get Jed versus Phoenix, BTL, sometime in 2025. I have a feeling it's gonna happen. When, I don't know, but I have a feeling we are gonna get it at some point. So Jed, you got the mic, my friend. What would you like to say to the people to celebrate your victory?
I just want to say congrats to you. Very looking forward to the town hall, as it has already been an interesting start to 2025 for Don Davis. Some good, some pretty bad going in there. So credit to him to coming back. My question, though, that I'll leave all of you with is, who's in charge of GFL, and when are you getting a town hall with them? Because I got a lot of questions for the GFL. So that's your next project, Mike. That's your homework. A town hall with whoever's running up GFL.
I assume that'll be Darren Owen. Darren, the world is your oyster. We would love to do that. Expect a message from me soon. Guy, any final words for the people who voted against you, those scoundrels?
Yeah. Everyone that voted for me, you were right. I won. That sucks. Maybe I should have brought my daughter sooner. I think that was a mistake. But yeah, it was a pleasure. I'll be back here one day, only if I'm playing against Jed, so I can get my revenge. And that's it.
Next time I won't bring Otto to the table, and it'll be a more fair fight.
Wow, it's like the Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prohashka series. You know, all these different elements being brought in they're just too powerful for the opponent. So we'll see if we can take the family members out of the equation, how things will play out. Casey, hit the music. We are done. We will see you all on Tuesday. We'll recap UFC Vegas 101. We'll get you ready for UFC 311. By the way, interview with Michael Bisping dropping tomorrow. And I'm going to be speaking later on today. I just found out with the UFC Bantamweight champion Merab Dvalishvili ahead of his title defense against Umar Nurmagomedov next Saturday at UFC 311. So stick with us at MMAfighting.com. For Guy, for Jed, for Casey on the ones and twos, the iconic voice of somebody in the Leiden household takes you home. Back on Tuesday. Good night, everybody.
This has been Between the Links, an MMA fighting production on the Vox Media Network.
I'm going to dominate fantasy this season, boys.